Anthony Creek here with Creek Manufacturing. The purpose of this video is to educate our current customers and those of you who do not know what viscosity is and how it can affect your printer. Now, I will be starting from low to high. Even though we do not carry a high inkset, I will be going over that. I'll be discussing the differences and the problems that you can see when you have the incorrect inkset and viscosity for your printer. So basically, we have very low, we have low, we have mid, and we have high viscosity. Now, that is not always the case. It's not cookie cutter. There are variances to those, and each printer may be different. So anyhow, starting with our first inkset, we have DTG and direct-to-film. We have a very low viscosity inkset for that. And with very low inksets or very low viscosity, you get smaller dot sizes. You're dealing with the multiple print head system. So not always the case, but sometimes one or more print heads. But the viscosity has to be lower for those print heads because the dot sizes are smaller and the nozzles are a lot smaller going from low to high. And in those low viscosity printers, the nozzles are a lot smaller. So you'll have to have a lower viscosity, and some people say thickness. That's okay, but we kind of don't use that terminology on the back end. But that's okay. It's a good way of explaining things. So you can say that viscosity, lower viscosity is thinner compared to something that's thicker. The ink basically has to stay suspended in the machine without any leaking. And in order, to stay suspended, it has to have that certain viscosity that the printer likes. It can depend on the system too. It can depend if it's a bulk system. It can depend on lots of factors. Where the bulk system is located on the printer, where if it's low or lower than the print head or above. So there's lots of factors that determine that. Okay, moving on to the low viscosity inkset. Now that's typically DTG. Not always the case, but DTG, utilizing a one print head system, about 20 to 25 shirts max an hour depending on the print size. But if we're talking about a 10 by 10 inch area, it's about about 20 shirts an hour or so. So anyhow, that's our inkset. That is our low viscosity one. And the mid viscosity, you're probably going to get about 50 to 75 shirts an hour, and it's probably going to be a multiple print head system. So anyhow, these printers are fast, or a little bit faster than the lower viscosity ones. Now, with the lower viscosity compared to mid, you usually have difference in resolution. So lower viscosity inksets tend to go with print heads that have higher resolution compared to the mid viscosity ones that runs slightly lower. Print quality, looking at the prints from one printer to the other, printing the same photo, there's really not much of a difference. You can probably see if you look really closely, but we're not going to use some type of microscope to look at the dot sizes unless that's what you want to do. But we're printing on t-shirts, we're not printing on paper, so it's really not that big of a deal. And the mid viscosity printers, you can get really great results too. So just keep that in mind. It's not really a negative thing. And even though we don't carry a high viscosity ink, there are printers out there that do print with high viscosity ink, and the nozzle sizes are bigger as well. So there are cleaning solutions that we carry, and we do have lower viscosity cleaning solutions, and we do have mid viscosity cleaning solutions. So there is a such thing as both of those. A few common problems that you'll experience when you don't have the correct viscosity in your printer. three things that kind of stick out and stand out to me and my staff is basically, one, you've got ink leaking out of the print head. Now that's not always the case. It can happen if the white is not agitated properly. And two, if you're getting a low amount of prints. So if your printer normally does 20 prints and then a cleaning after those 20 prints, but all of a sudden you get this new ink and you're only doing 10 prints and having to do a cleaning after that, that's also an indicator. But it's not always the case. There can be other parts that you've got that are clogged, and just so happens after you switch to the new ink set that those underlying issues are now present. So that has happened, and it will happen if you have some underlying issues in the printer. Another scenario, which is there is absolutely no ink introduced to the printer, and so you've got clear lines, never been touched, and you're purging the printer and nothing is coming through. Now that can be an indication that the viscosity is not correct for the printer. Another thing is that it may be perfectly fine. The ink set may be perfectly fine, the viscosity may be perfectly fine, but nothing is pulling through because you've got some type of air leak. So those are a few things that you need to keep in mind that can occur and that the machine has to be maintained. You cannot have a printer that you're introducing new ink that hasn't been maintained. So anyhow, a link to all of our products are in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share with a friend that you think that this video would help and if you found it useful. Thanks so much for your business. We really appreciate it.